Hello, this is OverlordBou, back with another ship review video, and today we'll be looking at the upcoming Tier 10 US Hybrid BB, the Louisiana. Alright, now the US Hybrid BB line will be coming available through the early access starting in patch 12.0, and like previous events, these ships will be attained through buying event bundles. Now, the Tier 9 Delaware will appear as a random drop in the bundles, while the Tier 10 Louisiana can be bought for doubloons after all event doubloons are obtained. Now, the Tier 8 Nebraska is the final award obtained through the paid Battle Pass system. Now, as usual, I do not recommend buying the early access ships with money. Remember, they'll be formally released in 3 months. Now, the Nebraska, since it is the final award for the Battle Pass system, pretty much if you're getting the Battle Pass, you're going to get the Nebraska anyway, so might as well have that. But overall, the Louisiana and Delaware aren't really something it's worth spending money on, so just wait for the 3 months. If you want to do it, you can. If not, it's up to you, so your choice on that. Now, I'll be going over my recommended captain build, followed with the module setup, followed by the ship stats, and finally, I'll give my thoughts about her performance overall. Now, first up is the captain build, and upgrades will be shown on the top right. You all can pause the video anytime if you want to take a look, but the build's pretty much just a standard battleship build, so nothing really special there. Now, moving on, we'll be talking about the ship stats, starting with their armor and survivability. Now, the armor will be shown on the top right. Now, the Louisiana has a 32mm bow/stern with a 38mm deck armor, with a 409mm belt armor, and a 96,300 HP pool, with a 35% torpedo protection. Now, Louisiana's hull is basically a Montana with a flight deck strapped on top. So, pretty much a giant turtleback. Now, her flight deck is surprisingly resistant to long-range fire, but tends to eat full pens under 15 kilometers as the shells get caught under the flight deck. Now, cruisers with improved HE pen will also chew through her armor without issues, so definitely be aware of that as well. Now, however, her effective durability is lowered when trying to use her planes. Now, while flying the planes, you cannot use your repair party or DCP, and autopilot also has a habit of trying to get you killed, so pretty much 24/7 is trying to run you in an island. Now, you'll probably find a suicidal autopilot to be very a common theme in the later part of the video, but luckily I really don't use autopilot that much, so you probably won't see it that much, so lucky you. Now, next up is her main guns, with them being 10 406mm/50 guns, same as the Iowa and Montana, with 6 in the front and 4 in the rear. They have a 22.8 kilometer range with a 30-second base reload, with a 45-second 180 degree turret traverse, and can fire 45 degrees off the bow and 35 degrees off the stern. Now, the HE shell damage is 5,700 with a 68mm HE pen, a 36% fire chance at 114k HE DPM. Now, you do have an AP shell damage of 13.5k with a 28mm overmatch with a 45 through 60 degree ricochet angle and a 270k AP DPM. Now, the Louisiana guns are the dispersion is going to be shown on the top right, by the way. Now, the Louisiana guns are usable, but a notable downgrade from the Montana. Though she retains the same accuracy, she does lose 2 guns. She does, however, have a decent kiting angle, but her rear gun is effectively useless when pushing in, so definitely be aware of that. So pretty much if you're pushing in, you have to show a lot of broadside to be able to get all the guns shown. So if you're in a kiting angle, you definitely have a better angle when you're kiting, so definitely take note of that in your endeavors with her. Now, overall, her firepower is comparable to the Tier 9 Iowa, not really a good thing considering Louisiana is a Tier 10 ship. Now, for the secondary armaments, you have 10 twin 127mm/54 guns with 1800 HE shell damage, with 4-second reload time, a 7.3 kilometer range with a 9% fire chance. Now, it does get the normal US line BB secondary dispersion, so bad. So it's effectively as effective as a Montana, so not worth building into at all. So definitely take note of that. Now, for the anti-air, you do have 6 inner plus 2 outer, so you have 8 total anti-air, with the longs GPS being 175, the mid being 529, and the near being 186, with an anti-air range of 6 kilometers. Now, the Louisiana's anti-air is above average, though ultimately not enough to fend off Tier 10 and Tier 11 CVs. So if anything becomes, if anything, she becomes a juicy target if the CV catches her when she's flying her planes. She's definitely vulnerable to anything that isn't rockets, so definitely be careful when CVs are in the match. Now, as for her anti-sub capabilities, you do get 2 max charges and 2 depth charges per attack. Each depth charge has a potential damage of 4,900 with a reload time of 30 seconds and a range of 11 kilometers. Now, it is the same ASW as other BBs, pretty good overall since they have excellent range. Now, moving on, I'll be talking about the tactical HE dive bombers. Now, the pattern will be shown on the top right. And for the attack runs, you get 1 per flight. A number of planes per squad is 6, with an aircraft restoration time of 120 seconds. Now, the HE bomb damage is 7,300, with the HE pen of 42 millimeters. Now, the aircraft HP is 2,500. So it's pretty decent HP. Now the cruise speed is 135 knots and a max speed of 171 knots, and the number of engine boosts is 2. Now Louisiana's dive bombers are powerful when used correctly. Not only do they deal good damage, but they're effective at spotting and damaging DDs. Later on in this video, yeah, I haven't done it yet. Later on in this video, I pretty much delete a DD. You guys will see that a little bit later. You'll see me delete a DD. Just wait for it. It'll be later in the video, of course. But at the same time, something other BBs are incapable of. The planes are very tanky, capable of flying through several ships anti-air while barely losing any planes. Now, you will rarely drop without anything less than 5 planes unless you're just eating up all the flat clouds. Now, 2 minutes may sound like a long time, but you will rarely need bombers off of cooldown. So as you'll see throughout the video, pretty much you're just timing your salvos and then you're just doing your bombs in between them. You'll do fine in the end. Now, again, just don't fly your planes for too long. You can't control the hull or fire the guns while flying without autopilot. And the autopilot will always try to kill you, so definitely be wary of that. Now, if you're going to be mastering this ship, you have to pretty much use the effective use of these bombers is key to mastering this line. If you aren't able to pretty much master the planes and like switching between the two, you're not going to do well with this line at all. So pretty much if you're really good in the Kearsarge, you'll do really good in this line is pretty much the best way of putting it. Now for maneuverability, you have a 31 knot max speed with a 950 meter turning radius and an 18.6 second rudder shift time. Now, thank God she uses the Montana hull. She actually has a usable turning radius, unlike real CVs and the Kearsarge. And for some reason, her rudder shift time turns slightly faster than the Montana herself, which is pretty surprising because of just how large, it's pretty surprising. Now, of course, it doesn't matter as much with autopiloting, but she handles surprisingly well for an abomination like herself. Moving on to concealment, she has a surface detection of 16 kilometers base and a 14.5 kilometer base for aerial. And it has a 13.6 kilometer best surface detection and 11.7 kilometer for best aerial detection. Now for her tier, her concealment is pretty average, and it's good enough for guns, but a bit far for planes to be pretty efficient between salvos. So, it's okay. It's all right. It's pretty good. Now, finally, here's the consumables available to her. The U.S. Damage Control Party, which is 20-second immunity period with an 80-second reload time. A standard BB repair party, which heals 14 through 17% of the total HP. 4 charges base, 5 with the ERE, which you are going to need to build into, with an 80-second reload time. Now, you do get catapult fighter planes, 3 charges base, with the 4 fighters per squadron, with a 60-second active time and a 90-second reload. Now, just to take note, as I said with the Nebraska video, the U.S. hybrid line uses the normal repair party and not the improved version on the Montana line, so you're not getting that amazing same heal as the Montana does, sadly. Moving on to my overall impressions of the Louisiana. Now, the skill 4 is very high. It is very difficult to bounce between the bomber use and playing the battleship. Now, newer players often fly their bombers for too long, heavily reducing their firepower or accidentally putting themselves in dangerous situations. Pretty much, as you're flying the plane around, you may not be watching or figuring out where your hull's going, and you may put yourself into a dangerous situation and go kaplooey. So it also doesn't help that the autopilot is active trying to kill you in 24/7. So yeah, definitely be aware of that. Now the skill setting is also very high. If you have the optimum balance of bombing, spotting, and the battleship gameplay, it's very difficult without a lot of practice. So even for experienced players, there's also a lot of useful tricks specifically to the hybrid BBs that require a lot of practice to master. Pretty much, if you know how to play the Kearsarge properly, you'll do just fine for the Louisiana line. Just saying. If you're good in the Kearsarge, you'll do pretty well with the Louisiana line as a reference. Now, she combines the Montana gameplay with the Midway dive bombers, giving her unparalleled utility for a battleship. However, this comes at the cost to the rest of the ship. Without her dive bombers, the Louisiana is effectively a tier 9 BB. So just putting that reference. So yeah, it's pretty much, if you don't do very well with the dive bombers, you're pretty much a tier 9 BB in a tier 10 or 11 match. So just take note of that. Now, the Louisiana should position roughly 13 through 17 kilometers away from the enemy. She is a battleship first and foremost, and should be played like one. Taking a kiting position, trading blows with the enemy, and shooting at broadsides whenever possible. And you definitely want to try to avoid pushing in unless you're fighting 1 or 2 ships and you have support as well. Now, Louisiana has bad forward firing angles, and it's harder to fine-tune your angles against multiple opponents. Now, otherwise, general BB advice would also apply to her BB gameplay. Now, of course, the entire reason to play the hybrid line is her HE dive bombers. When played correctly, they can swing matches in ways other BBs cannot. Now, her dive bombers are also best used in specific situations when a DD is within 12 kilometers as a threat. Trying to light fires in coordination with your next salvo, low HP ships that are behind islands or not really moving around too much, or it has gone dark. Enemy ships that are on the flank and you have nothing better to do, so pretty much if you won your flank already and you're traveling across the map, might as well take your dive bombers for a little flight around across the map and have some fun. Now, some general tips. The HE dive bombers are deadly against DDs, both spotting it and dealing respectable damage, depending upon your support. It might be better to hover over the DD, which I did earlier in this match. Definitely take note of that, because early in the match I was hovering over to show him to make sure he was perma-spotted, so that he was able to get killed, because he was kind of harassing the side, so definitely doing that. So sometimes it's just better to hover over the DD and then just dealing the final blow, or just staying over and just providing the spawning for your teammates. Kind of like depends upon the situation. Now, the dive bombers do sound powerful, but realistically, don't expect more than 6k because of RNG. Now, if you do pre-aim your guns correctly, you can even get your own salvo off before the spotting wears off. So you pretty much have your guns aimed in the general direction where you're going to be going. Get your squadron out there, hit the target quickly, go back to your ship and shoot before the target goes dark. Now, while useful, don't go out of your way to hunt Ds. It will cost you precious salvos and potentially put your ship in danger if it's left for too long. Now, tip number 2 is her dive bombers will most likely see use against enemy BBs. If any enemy BBs is heavily angled, you can fire an HE salvo and immediately launch your planes. If he immediately DCPs your fire, you can time your bomb strikes with the end of his DCP, hopefully lining a perma-fire on him. This works best under 16 kilometers, being better the closer the enemy is. Of course, make sure your guns are already aimed before you launch. Don't waste precious time reorienting your guns. Tip number 3 is heading ships behind islands is useful, but relatively uncommon, so only useful if you don't have the shot on anyone else or the ship is a low HP. Now, flying bombers to the other flank should only be done if you're at low HP or have no other targets to shoot at. So pretty much, if you won your flank already, you can fly across the map, have some fun, go torture some people across the map. So have fun with that. Now, in the unfortunate and rare circumstance where you have no HP and heals remaining, you can pretty much just play like a CV. The bombers do take a while to reload, so focus on spotting and exploiting the enemy DCP timings, ideally still having guns ready in case a broadside does present itself. Now, overall, I'd say the hybrid line is interesting, though very difficult to master. If you played a Kearsarge, the Louisiana will be easier and vice versa. The line does sound powerful on paper, but in reality, her difficult handling in suicidal autopilot will keep her from achieving her full potential. Now, still, Louisiana will prove to be a deadly threat when played correctly. Again, like I was saying earlier, if you are proficient or trying to learn how to play this line, I would definitely say start practicing a lot in the Kearsarge. If you're able to play the Kearsarge in a manner like you were able to see me play in this match, having a cunning angle, using the bombers effectively, then yes, you'll do really, really well with the line. But if you can't do that properly, definitely get a lot of practice in, because if you try playing the Louisiana line ill or not correctly, you will definitely suffer. Just putting that out there. Now, for randoms, I say the ship is above average. She does have a lot of potential, but your average player will probably have mediocre performance. Now, for ranked, I'd say above average. It definitely shines in matches where spotting DDs can decisively influence the match. Otherwise, it's inferior to other BBs and sluggy matches. Now, for Clanville's, I say it has a potential niche. Louisiana could see use in 2 BB matches as a spotter BB. After 3 minutes, she can use her bombers to see the enemy deployment and scout for potential rotates. However, she is a strictly inferior to the Montana in all her aspects. If the team does not need her additional spotting potential, then she should not be used. In addition, French TDs can pick her off if she is out of position. So pretty much they can just run her down, gun her down, have fun with her, pretty much whatever. Now again, you are able to get the Nebraska, Delaware, and Louisiana in the upcoming 12.0 match. You can get the Nebraska as the final reward in the Battle Pass paid. The paid Battle Pass, the basic, not the premium Battle Pass, just the basic paid Battle Pass, like $10. You can get Nebraska for that. The Delaware will be appearing in a random drop in the bundle, so if you want to do that, you can. But again, I'm not really for gambling, so I don't really think it's worth it for that. And of course, you can get the Louisiana if you bought all the bundles, and then you can buy it for, sorry, not the bundles. If you bought all of the event doubloons, so they kind of like have the list that goes down. If you bought all of those, then you're able to buy the Louisiana. Okay, yeah. But again, I wouldn't really recommend buying the Delaware or the Louisiana or risking any of that. It's not really worth it, again, because you can just wait to get the line to come out. So for me, it's not really worth it in the end. So it's not really worth it to waste money on getting this early access. We can just get in 3 months. But again, if you have the money, you have the income, you want to do it, more than welcome to. Whatever you want to do. Again, it's just my own personal preference. You guys can spend whatever money you want to or not to. I'm just throwing out my opinions on the line and such. So yeah, that is going to be it. So now at this point, I'm just going to talk about the line and whatever else. So yeah, I couldn't get another replay that I was kind of like on a crunch for time. I couldn't really get a really nice other replay. So this match, it's going to be a pretty BB match. As you can tell, this matchmaking was brought to you by the Super CVs. There wasn't that much many Super CVs in queue at this time, and they had like a 5-minute queue timer, and we were pretty much put in here. You're going to see pretty much 3 ships of mine pretty much rage quit. 2 of them are in a yellow mid because they don't want to deal with the Super CV. And one of them is going to straight up just quit. So, yeah, you're going to have fun with this one. Also, the Goliath that was right here, he's also one of them that quit. You're going to see like his, you're going to see his comments in the chat sooner or later. You'll see him. But, I also didn't know why he stopped right here. He kind of slowed down and stopped. I don't know. It kind of became a traffic jam. It was like, it's kind of a disaster. I can understand why he got kind of mad. He wasn't very happy with this. But he mostly got pissed off because of the Super CV. So yeah. I can understand why he got mad, though. I did turn back right, though, so that he was able to get free finally. So I'm glad he finally got free. He was able to, you know, go back to port in peace, because he does rage quit in about 5 minutes. And you guys can read his chat whenever he does, and you guys can tell me if his reasoning was justified for it. Because his reasoning for quitting was because everyone was outside of his range, and he also was sitting extremely far back, and he never pushed in. So that was his reasoning for quitting. So I found that an interesting reason to just, you know, quit the game, because he kind of just went back to port. He legit went back to port. I found that to be an interesting reason, and not anything else. Because most of the time, people go into Goliath into range, so he could have technically moved up to like near the A section and got some shots off. But yeah, as you can see, one ship already pushed mid. They pretty much yellowed in there, just gave up. And as you can see, the other ship is also doing the same thing. And again, this was a super ship match with tier 9s. And there's barely anyone here. Like, it was such a disaster of a match. This matchmaking shouldn't happen, but later in the evenings, if there isn't that many super ships in queue or super CVs in queue, they'll hit that 5-minute timer. And when they hit that 5-minute timer, really wonky matchmaking can happen. And that's pretty much what happened in this particular match. Now, again, I didn't really have time to put in another, like, really cool or really impressive replay. So in this particular match, I do like 100 something K, I think. But I kind of just kept it in just to tend to fill time because the previous replay wasn't like super long. But I wanted to just show some gameplay elements and little stuff here and there so you guys could at least notice that. Now, since I can talk about it now, I was trying to figure out how this line and like how the line overall will affect clan battles. I could see a potential niche for the tier 8, 9, and 10 for clan battles. I could see a potential niche for it. But the main issue comes in is, what is the overall role of battleships in clan battles? What is their overall role? Well, you have the typical tank role, and you have the typical more like maneuverable, quick maneuverability with slash tankiness. So you pretty much have like the tankers, like the Kremlin. What are like other good tankers? Kremlin's pretty good. Ohio, they're pretty good ones. Yamato is just still around, but not as common anymore. St. Vincent is definitely really high up there at this point on its versatility for how maneuverable it is. What does this ship fit any of those roles at this point? Do I think it does? It doesn't really. It's really hard for this ship to be extremely pushy. It can't push over like super aggressive due to not being able to be super tanky. If it's bow in angling, yes, it can be tanky. But you show any kind of broadside or anything like that, if you're cutting away or you're showing that big juicy giant deck armor, any heavy HE cruiser, any strong cruiser in that deck will also just eat up all of that AP2 from battleships. So it's just all that damage will just start munching away at that ship. So I don't really think this ship fits the tank role too much or the versatile role. So I don't think the niche will be, I don't think there'll be too much usage. There will be some usage. I will definitely bet there will be some usage whenever the tier 10 or whenever there's another tier 10 season. There will definitely be some usage out of it just to test it out, but I don't think it'll be too heavy. Now, the dive bombers themselves though are amazing. The carpet bombing of the Louisiana, Nebraska, and Delaware are all amazing. They're really good dive bombers. They do an amazing job at what they do. As you saw in the previous match, I was able to delete a DD that ran into him, which was beautiful. I just loved doing it. Now, since the guns are also 406s, they're not that super hard hitting. They do have the 13.5 AP damage, but they're not like extremely hard hitting. So you're not going to get like a lot of citadels or a lot of heavy hits. Now, if you do time it correctly, you technically use HE. So, like, for instance, you use an HE salvo, you get an HE salvo onto a ship, you get it to set up, you get a fire on it, it DCPs, you get the bombers to go over, and you hit it and get a perma-fire, pretty much. So, pretty much, if you hit a ship with these dive bombers, they're almost going to guaranteed get a fire, or how high the fire chance is with them. Pretty much guaranteed get a fire, and they also do a lot of damage as well. It is super nice. And also, since this squad has so much HP, you also are almost always going to guarantee get 5 squads off, which is really nice. And, I just talked about, like, everyone getting fires all the time, and I didn't get a fire, so rip me, I guess. So, yeah. But as you can see, the chat is very salty in game. I kind of this was more like a meme match for me, because the whole time I was just laughing at I can understand the frustration, right? You're a tier 9 in this, you are actually screwed. But the Goliath, I didn't understand why he quit, though. I didn't... His, as you saw in the chat, he kind of complained about the range. But as you can see his positioning, he just sat right there. And if he would have waited, like if he was at the one line, right? If he was at the one line, waited for that Iowa to come up, he could have just farmed that guy. Is that an Iowa? I can't read. I'm blind. Someone needs to tell me if that's an Iowa or not. I'm blind. Is it a... I can't tell. That's an Iowa. That's an Iowa. So, like, pretty much, if that Goliath would have waited, right, in the match, he could have farmed the hell out of the Iowa. But he just rage quit and just, you know, had a pity party. But at the same time, I can understand the frustration, though. It is super aggravating. I can understand it completely, like, on why he got annoyed. But yeah, in the end, this match was pretty much a disaster. Just a big old tragedy. It was all the good times. But yeah... So yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for the Louisiana. And yeah, I just looked over the Goliaths like, oh my lord, 3 XP. But yep, that's going to be it. If you guys have any questions or concerns, let them know in the comments down below. But this is OverlordBou. Appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being here. Do appreciate y'all. And I'll talk to y'all later. Booyah!